Welcome to The Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here today. We are going to unpack one of the most delightfully confusing, spiky, and honestly most powerful terms in modern writing. It's a genre known as creative nonfiction. Now, if you've ever read a true story that just completely swept you away like a novel, you've already experienced it. But how does it actually work? Well, we're going to break the whole thing down today.
Here's our roadmap for this explainer. 1. The creative nonfiction paradox. 2. A rebellious literary history. 3. The 5 R's toolkit. 4. The 5 R's in action. And finally, 5. To illuminate, not instruct.
All right, Section 1, the creative nonfiction paradox, where fact meets imagination.
Let's dive right in by asking a pretty simple question. How can facts possibly be creative? I mean, really think about that for a second. How can something strictly factual and something entirely imaginative exist in the exact same sentence? It almost feels like a trick question, doesn't it?
Well, look at the standard dictionary definition of the word creative. The key focus here is on imagination and forming a mental picture of something not present. Being creative is fundamentally about drawing on things you haven't strictly experienced in reality. It's all about invention.
But then contrast that with nonfiction. Its definition demands a focus on facts, real events, and real people. Literally, it means not fiction. So we've got an absolute head-on clash between making things up and sticking strictly to the verifiable truth. The fact that these two words sit side by side to define a massive literary genre, it's a paradox that kind of confused readers and writers alike for decades. Section 2. A rebellious literary history. The birth of a genre.
So where did this crazy contradiction even come from? Well, while factual stories written with creative flair have actually been around for centuries, think Julius Caesar's memoirs or the 16th century personal essays of Michel de Montaigne, the genre as we know it today really caught fire in the 1960s. You see, journalists during the Vietnam War and civil rights eras grew totally exhausted by the constraints of just the facts reporting. They figured absolute objectivity was basically an illusion. So, writers like Hunter S. Thompson sparked this gonzo rebellion, intentionally injecting wild personal bias and poetic language into their reportage. Then, in the 1970s, a writer named Lee Goodkind needed a way to teach this exciting new style in universities without stepping on the toes of the fiction or traditional journalism departments. So he popularized this admittedly clunky term, creative nonfiction. It bypassed the academic red tape, and you know what? The name stuck.
Section 3. The 5 R's toolkit. Balancing art and truth.
Okay, so how did today's writers masterfully balance art with absolute truth? They use a really specific cognitive framework. Here they are. The 5 R's. Real, remembered, researched, reflect, and retold. Think of this as your essential toolkit and roadmap for crafting any piece of creative nonfiction. Every single R plays a vital role.
First up is real. Now, this isn't just based on a true story, like some Hollywood movie. This is a strict capital R commitment to the truth, to the absolute best of the writer's ability. But telling your personal truth inherently involves other real people. And man, that brings heavy ethical friction. Take the author Frank Conroy, for example. When he published his memoir, Stop Time, his mother felt she was portrayed as neglectful and the relationship never fully recovered. Conroy believed it was his truth to tell, but it really highlights the immense responsibility and subjective reality that comes with keeping things real.
The second R is remembered. We often think of our memories as this perfect video playback, but science tells us that is entirely false. Memory is subjective. It's highly protective of our psyche, often blocking out trauma or altering details just to preserve our self-image. It literally deteriorates. Every time you recall an event, you're essentially remembering a memory of a memory. It's like a copy of an old VHS tape losing quality. So in this genre, memory is less about perfect factual playback and much more about the stories we tell ourselves to survive and understand who we are.
And because memory is so flawed, we desperately need the third R, research. But research here goes way beyond just fact-checking the weather on a Tuesday 10 years ago. It acts as a bridge to our fourth R, reflect. This is where the magic happens, folks. A writer investigates the verifiable facts so they can deliver what Lee Goodkind calls the so what factor. To reflect means to ruminate and make meaning out of an experience. It's taking a heavily researched subject or an isolated personal memory and elevating it into a universal truth that any reader anywhere can empathize with.
Finally, we have retold. This is the art of the telling itself. It's where the creative part really shines. Writers use sensory details, vivid imagery, and scene building to make you feel like you were standing right there. but they also use incredible narrative structures and thematic frames. For instance, an author might frame an entire essay about family cheating and emotional distance around the singular concept of scarcity, scarcity of love, scarcity of attention. It's exactly how you elevate a dry list of ordinary facts into a compelling piece of art.
Section 4. The 5 R's in action. Analyzing small wonder.
All right, let's put this theoretical framework to the ultimate test with a high-stakes, real-world case study. This quote comes from Barbara Kingsolver's brilliant essay, Small Wonder. She sets a deeply dramatic scene. A 16-month-old baby boy has wandered off in the rugged mountains of Iran. Just listen to the gripping, sensory details here, looking in ordinary hiding places, expecting a game to end with a laugh, and then that sudden, stone-cold realization that he is just gone.
Let's look at how she builds this using our toolkit. Kingsolver uses the Remembered tool brilliantly here. Now, she wasn't actually in Iran, but she maps her own harrowing, frantic memory of once losing her daughter in a crowd onto the Iranian parents' panic. By tapping into her own subjective memory of sheer terror, she makes the scene incredibly visceral and authentic for the reader.
And then she delivers the climactic twist of the story. After 3 days of searching the mountains, the search party finds the baby in a cave. But he isn't alone. The baby was found with the bear in her den. He was alive, unscarred, and perfectly well, fed, smelling of milk. A wild she-bear had been nursing the human child. I know, it sounds entirely made up, right? No way that happened. But it actually fulfills the real and research requirements of our toolkit. Kingsolver meticulously researched the original news sources to verify this wasn't a hoax. It is a strictly factual event. Now, if this were just standard journalism, the story would end right there as a bizarre anomaly. But that's where Kingsolver brings in Reflect. She uses this factual event to illuminate a much deeper truth. She speculates that the bear must have recently lost her own cubs and was driven by the pure, unconquerable chemistry of maternity. Kingsolver elevates a freaky news story into a profound meditation on a mother's love and the shared DNA of mammalian motherhood. It becomes completely universal.
Section 5. To illuminate. Defining boundaries.
Which leads us perfectly to summarizing the definitive boundaries that separate this genre from its literary neighbors. When we look at standard nonfiction, think of a travel brochure, a history textbook, maybe a recipe. Its primary purpose is to inform or instruct you. It literally just gives you data. But creative nonfiction has a much loftier goal. It is designed to emotionally illuminate the reader. It wants you to walk away seeing the human experience in a slightly different, more empathetic light.
And when compared to its other neighbor, fiction, the difference is just as stark. In fiction, the author's largely invisible, hiding behind made-up characters, and the truth is highly flexible. You can change literally anything you want to serve the plot. But in creative nonfiction, the narrator is highly visible. Their subjective voice is front and center, and most importantly, they are deeply accountable to the real world, to real people, and to the verifiable facts.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a provocative question to ponder. Whose truth are you telling? And how will you use the 5 R's, real, remembered, researched, reflect, and retold, to shape your memories into a story that truly matters? Think about the events in your own life through this lens. The truth is out there, and with the right toolkit, it's just waiting to be illuminated. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep exploring.